To the second free practice session of the day. This one, as ever, slightly shorter than the first at 30 minutes in duration. We had a 45-minute session earlier on today, and they can see from the wide shot that we have pretty much blue, clear skies throughout here at the Nürburgring. I wouldn't bet my house that it's going to stay like it throughout the entire course of the weekend. That would be unique to this part of the world where the weather is incredibly changeable normally. But for now, we can enjoy a beautiful early autumnal day. My name's Chris Hartley, and I'll be talking you through this second free practice session. And there, you look into the eyes of the man that was joint fastest in the first free practice session this morning, and that's Marco Wittmann. Marco and Nico Müller setting exactly the same lap time as each other this morning.
Check radio check, 40 seconds. Copy.
1 minute 48.113 seconds, the time set in the first.
So Jamie is not going to queue, and otherwise it seems to be Rocky, Müller, Duval.
Running RAS radio there, getting the insides, the lowdown into who's going out on tracks to begin with this session.
15, 10, 9, 8, 7.
And as I say, the first 12 minutes or so of the session this morning were given over to single pace lap times. That's where all the quick lap times for each driver came from. After that, they were concentrating on longer runs. And having set exactly the same lap time as Marco Wittmann, but slightly after he did it in the first part of free practice, Nico Müller was mighty impressive on long run pace, managing to get into the high 1 minute 49s within 2 laps of the end of his stint. So able to keep the tyre life going and managing that very well indeed. Less tyre degradation here by far than there was at Assen last weekend. And it could be that we'll get some quicker lap times in this second free practice session, because some of the feedback coming from the drivers over the team radios was that it was a little bit slippy out there for that first free practice session this morning, less grip than they'd anticipated. First time that the DTM has used this version of the circuit, the full Grand Prix circuit being used. The sprint circuit will be used next weekend. The difference between the two circuits is about 1.5 kilometres, so it's 5.14 kilometres around the Grand Prix version of the circuit, and it's next weekend going to be reduced down to a total distance of 3.629 kilometres. First time, as I say, they've used this version of the circuit in DTM. The GP version of the track was used back in 2001, but back then the track was significantly shorter than it is now. There are a couple of drivers that have got some experience of using this circuit, albeit not in DTM cars. One of them is Timo Glock, who raced here for Marussia in Formula One. And he was speaking in the post-practice press conference, saying that actually it's quite a while ago, back in 2011, but the feeling that he had going through the mighty quick Schumacher S section in the DTM car today was pretty similar to the sensation he remembers on full attack in a Formula One car. High praise indeed for these incredibly quick machines that we have in the DTM this season. Another driver enjoying the challenge and giving a really descriptive guide to a lap around here was Ferdinand Habsburg, who's been going very well at the start of this season. And you can see Jamie Green, who was the other driver involved in the press conference, and was sort of joking that the fact that he's been doing DTM for 16 seasons now and he's never raced this circuit before, but he really enjoyed the morning session. He said I wouldn't say it's my favourite track yet, I've still got some work to do. And he said he was a bit of a pussycat through the S section.
It's 20.
Needs to be a bit more of a lion through there. Certainly some time to be found through there. Not quite flat out yet, the drivers were saying, but Timo Glock reckoned that if you got the car absolutely underneath you and set up beautifully, then when it comes to qualifying tomorrow, they might well be able to attack the Schumacher S. Is absolutely flat out, but it's not quite flat out at the moment. Ferdinand Habsburg had a go, but had a moment through the gravel trap, which was a bit hairy, he said. And the car's now released out onto the circuit, ready for this second free practice session. Marco Wittmann, who also had good long run pace, not just a quick single lap at the start of the session earlier on today, but was also, wasn't the quickest, but he was up there, wasn't far away for BMW. So some work to do for BMW, in particular in qualifying trim, to close the gap to Audi, but signs are it's going in the right direction. And they've certainly used some good strategy in the last couple of meetings to get their drivers onto the top step of the podium. BMW drivers winning 2 of the last 3 races, with Lucas Auer first and then Sheldon van der Linde, who didn't appear in the top 10 in the free practice timesheets, just outside in 11th place, but was another driver that looked like he was able to put in some good, consistent, quick lap times in the longer run. So this morning, Marco Wittmann and Nico Müller setting the joint best time of 1 minute 48.113 seconds. Timo Glock, who was keen to get out, was the first one out, first one pushing hard this morning. Timo was third quickest with a 1 minute 48.272, so just a 1/10.5 behind. And then Robin Freins was fourth quickest, 1 minute 48.377. Jamie Green was fifth, 1 minute 48.511. Loic de Waal, 1 minute 48.643, went sixth, having got pole position last weekend at Assen for one of the races. And then Mike Rockenfeller, seventh for the local team, Team Phoenix, with a 1:48.722.
Just past he's approaching the chicane now.
This is race control to all drivers, radio check. This is race control to all drivers, radio check.
Same as FP1, race control, it's very low.
So that's something we do.
René on start finish.
Often privy to the radio conversations between engineers and drivers, but not always between drivers and race control. So just a sound check there more than anything, because the drivers will get instruction from race control throughout the course of the weekend. So this is the run down towards the right-hander at the Dunlop curve. You can see it's quite a steep downhill drop into that turn. Now the elevation difference between the start-finish line and that hairpin is 55 metres, so it is quite an undulating circuit, this. No big steep rises like we had at the start of the year at Spa, but quite long gradual descents and ascents then in the second sector of the lap. And there, this fantastic low slung shot when Robin Freins is going at full pelt later on in this free practice session. I hope we get another look from this camera as he attacks the Michael Schumacher S section, because that was quite a sight. Making his way out of turn 13 now, up towards the chicane. This is one of the hardest braking zones on the lap, and this is a place where there's sure to be some overtaking, use of DRS and push to pass on that straight in the uphill braking zone. Robin actually had a big lock-up there in the first free practice session. If you didn't watch this morning, towards the end of the session, had a mighty lock-up there and went straight on. No damage done, apart from flat spotting his Hankook tyre. So still generating some heat into the tyres for Robin, who's arriving here second in the championship, having finally scored his maiden victory in his 45th attempt at Assen last weekend in the first race of the weekend, and closing the gap in the points to just 26 now. Just 26, it's still quite a big gap, but almost within a race win now in terms of points to Nico Müller, having leapfrogged René Rast into second place in the championship. Right, Ferdinand Habsburg and René Rast starting to push the times a bit, not yet absolutely flying. 1 minute 48. We're looking for single lap pace. That's if they're going for the single lap pace at the moment, rather than starting out with a longer run pace. But as mentioned this morning in the first free practice session, the difference between the race pace lap times and the single lap qualifying type runs was far less than it was at Assen. That's because tyre degradation is much less of an issue here. It was more like 4 to 4.5 seconds between those lap times in the Netherlands, but here it's somewhere between 2 and 2.5 seconds, the difference. And from the longer runs we saw that the times weren't really dropping off too much in the first sort of 8 to 10 laps of the runs. René Rast then coming through. Now he didn't appear anywhere near the top 10 in the free practice one times. If you do just picked up the results and had a look at that, you'd be slightly worried if you're a René Rast fan if you didn't watch the free practice session this morning. But the truth is, he never really got the run in for that first part of free practice. Had a slight worry with the car. A sensor was giving off a warning, and just as he was about to put a quick lap in, he aborted the lap, and then after that they were concentrating on long runs. So René certainly looked quick enough in the vast majority of free practice one, but the times don't really reflect that. He's looking quick at the start of this one, making his way up towards the chicane, then the Vidor chicane, and then up towards the final turn, which Ferdinand Habsburg was saying earlier on is pretty bumpy through here, and you can see that from the onboard camera here with René Rast. Bumpy asphalt, get out of there, and then this long run down towards the first corner. And what's René's time? A 1 minute 52.261. But Loic de Waal has gone to the very top of the times with the first 1 minute 47 of the weekend so far. Rockenfeller has got close to that as well. So Loic de Waal 1 minute 47.860 in this second free practice session. Fastest lap so far. And Nico Müller goes even quicker, 1 minute 47.601. So Müller fastest of all now. De Waal down to second on a 147.860, and the other driver in the 147s, Mike Rockenfeller, 1 minute 47.986. Habsburger 148.079 in fourth. Glock a 148.162 in fifth, and Jonathan Aberdeen into the top six with a 1 minute 48.547. Newey seventh. Scherer going well in eighth, Rast ninth, and Green in 10th place. Robin Frijns on a flyer though. He's put the absolute best first sector time in so far, 49.869 seconds. That is a very quick first sector time. I'm not sure we've seen anybody, certainly not this morning, dip beneath the 50-second bracket, and he's done a very low 38 in the second sector as well, where we're seeing the quickest second sector times were around 38.4 seconds this morning, and that's a 38.1, 3/10 quicker. So the track has gripped up. Track temperature has risen, more cars have been out on track, just done an hour-long race as well here at the Nürburgring, and Robin Frijns, sure enough, goes to the top of the times, 1 minute 47.560. Müller, though, on another flyer, he's just done the absolute best first sector in the number 51 Audi, a 49.774. Team Ab Sportsline teammate to Robin Frijns. They're first and second at the moment, De Waal third, Mike Rockenfeller fourth, but on a decent lap, and René Rast gets in the mix now as well with a 147.805 to go third quickest. Rockenfeller 147.975, personal best lap, keeps him just outside of the top four in this free practice session. But what about Müller? Personal best in the second sector, absolute best in the first. Will it put him to the top of the times? Yes, it will. Just 1 minute 47.543. So that is just 17 thousandths of a second quicker than Robin Frijns. They're both on the 147.5 mark. And then you got Rast and De Waal, 147.8 in third and fourth, 147.9 for Rocky in fifth, and Marco Wittmann, who was joint quickest this morning, is just behind them on a 148.035. He's gone sixth. Habsburg is only a fraction slower than Wittmann. He's seventh. And then Glock and Auer, both of them 148.1s. In fact, there's only a thousandth of a second between those two in eighth and ninth. Habsburg eighth, Glock ninth, and then Lucas Auer 10th. Engs 11th, Aberdeen's 12th, Vanderlyn into 13th, Newey 14th, and then Scherer and Kubica 15th and 16th. On boards with Marco Wittmann then. Who had good long run pace earlier on today. Attacking through this first sector. It's all about, Ferdinand Habsburg said, keeping your minimum speed as high as you can. It's all about keeping the rhythm and the momentum going through that first sector of the lap. Turns 2 and 3. Turn 1's all about being the last of the late breakers. Running on board now with Nico Müller, but he's on a slowing down lap. His first sector time suggests he's back right off, but he is the driver at the top of the times. And the car looks to be beautifully balanced so far this weekend in both short and long run form. The other thing compared to Assen about this circuit, other than the surface itself, is that there's a much more equal distribution of left and right corners. There's much more equal distribution on the tyre wear on each side of the car. Asphalt far less aggressive than at Assen, so there shouldn't be any major tyre problems here, and tyre degradation. GP variant of the circuit equates to around about 28 seconds longer than the sprint variant of the circuit. So it's just another 28 seconds to do another 1.5 kilometers, which is pretty impressive, isn't it? So lots of cars coming in, having had another qualifying type run, simulation run. 1 or 2 laps to build up the speed, then a couple of laps, maybe 3 going for it. There's Timo Glock. Asked the drivers as well about what it's like to have these 3 back-to-back weekends and whether they manage to get any downtime in between race weekends and how important it is to get a bit of a break from the racing. And Ferdinand Habsburg said, you know, I like to get, if I can get 3 days off away from motorsport, that helps me to reset. And that can be a good thing if you're on a bad run of form to reset, and if you're on a good run of form, then you know you're good to go. You're raring to go anyway. But he was saying he had some downtime, managed to get 3 massages.
I mean, I had a lock-up first lap whatsoever. I don't know. Yeah, other than that, it's okay.
Copy that.
So fairly happy. René Rast, a bit of a lock-up on his first run, but there was no major issues. Just looking at the data as ever, 3rd quickest.
Waiting for that out of the cars. We are well up by it.
Couple of tenths away though from Muller and Freins. Well, interesting that, isn't it? Because they're in championship order basically in this first part of the second free practice session. Muller, Freins, Rast, Duval, top 4 in the championship. The top 4 in times in this second free practice session. So Audi's at the moment locking out the top 4 positions. Marco Wittmann in 5th place, the best of the BMWs so far, but he looked, as I say, very bright in that first free practice session this morning in both runs. And Timo Glock not quite as high up as he was earlier on, where he managed 3rd fastest time of 1:48.2 this morning. Timo Glock's actually gone quicker this afternoon, but the track's quicker and everybody's going quicker. So Timo Glock's lap time this afternoon is actually a 10th quicker than he went this morning, but instead of being 3rd, he's 10th because everybody else improving as well. But look at that, only 0.8 of a second covering the top 12 in the session so far. And it's a pretty long lap here, over 5 kilometres long around the circuit, so quite impressive that it's been as close as that in this session. And it looks like they're going to be focusing on long run pace now. Going back out quickly because there's less time available to them than there was in this morning's free practice 1 session.
Some more points for the balance?
No, so all fine. The bouncing is slightly less into turn 1, slightly less into turn 5. Still a bit on the understeer side in lap 1 in medium and high speed, but okay.
So balance.
Okay, copy that. Then you prepare the car for the next one.
Balance still needs a little bit of tweaking. Timo Glock was saying this morning that he was happy, it was quick out of the box, his BMW, but there were 1 or 2 areas that they were looking to tweak, to improve on slightly if they could.
Wait.
And then Nico Müller will be very satisfied indeed with his day's work so far.
Okay, you can prepare for engine start.
Winner of the first 3 rounds of the championship.
And we can go.
But his points advantage has just started to be eroded.
So we are in schedule, so exactly on schedule. So it will be 7 timed laps possible. At the moment the track is clear.
So there you heard it, 7 timed laps will be the run. That's the hope in the remaining 15 minutes. Sounds about right. By the time you've done an out lap and got a bit of heat and speed into the tyres. So you've got Nico Müller on an out lap. René Rast has gone out as well. Luc de Valley's already out on track. There you can see him. Fabio Scherer, who had that big crash in the wet conditions on slick tyres in the previous round at Assen to bring out the late red flag. He's also out on track. Loic Duval then shooting up the championship table, not quite in the title fight yet as he runs out wide there, but he very much did himself and he's caused no harm whatsoever with that particularly good first race that he had, the second place finish at Assen a week ago. Robin Freins, the Dutch driver, ready to go once he's absorbed the data. And who else has gone back out on circuit? Nobody yet. Most of them still in the pits, actually. Jamie Green's gone back out, so that's another one. And Mike Rockenfeller has just gone out onto the circuit as well. So looking at the data traces for each corner, each sector.
We will put the screen away and you will have 7 lap time, including the out lap. And you can do a start practice.
Now straight here, huh?
So they'll, as you heard there, get some practice starts at the end of the session, as always at the end of a free practice session. Had some of those this morning. All critical practice and also data for the drivers. So you get a bit more than half an hour of the DTM cars around here. And there, Loic Duval just making his way out of the final turn. The Hyundai N-Curve. Heat haze as the number 28 Audi makes its way over the line. The former World Endurance Champion and Le Mans winner then. Still looking for his first DTM win, but very strong start to the season so far. Best start he's had to a season in his DTM career hitherto. And going on the attack now. Will be a slightly longer run. Making his way through the first complex, the Mercedes Arena. Out of what's essentially a wide chicane, using all of the circuit and then some. Accelerating out of there. And then towards the left-right turn, which then drops you downhill. So this very quick left-hander down towards the hairpin at the bottom of the hill at the Dunlop curve. So Duval through the first sector with a 50.9, but Wittmann's been 0.6 quicker through the first sector and we've had even quicker times than that. So it looks like it's going to be around about 2 seconds or so away from the best times that we saw at the start of the session. No surprises there, really. Worth noting as well, it's going to be a limited number of fans in the grandstands this weekend. For the first time at Assen last weekend, we had fans back on site, and a particularly joyous moment for Robin Freins having some home support in his first race victory, and so too for Sheldon van der Linde, the South African, with an historic second race victory, his maiden DTM victory, and first time a South African has stood atop the step, and it was great for him to have the recognition of the fans that were there and some live applause for that. And there will be 3 grandstands open Saturday and Sunday, a limited number of fans allowed access just for this weekend so far is the plan, but we'll see how it pans out for the return visit to the Nürburgring next weekend using the sprint layout of the track. So looking at the data from the...
And Timo, we do again a start end of the pit lane.
Looking at the data from the longer runs earlier on, Nico Müller able to put in a time of 1:49.9. That was his last but one lap. So he did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He did 15 lap run essentially, and it was on the 14th lap that he was able to put in his best time, which is pretty ominous. He was the only driver apart from Marco Wittmann to get in the 1:49s. So Timo Glock, you're right on board with now, making his way out onto the circuit, making sure he stays out of the way of others. It was Harrison Newey just going past him, one of the rookies in the DTM 2020, the British driver. Has already been a point scorer this year So there's Loic de Waal. And Muller's last lap time, a 1 minute 49.9. He's just gone across the line a bit quicker, 1:49.6. So again, Muller is the only driver so far on the longer runs to be able to put in 1:49s, except that there are one or two others out there that look like they might be getting close to that with decent first sector times on this lap. So we'll wait and see, but certainly Muller is able to maintain that ability to get into the 1:49. So that lap's 2.1 seconds away from his very best on single run pace. But as I say, it's only he and Marco Wittmann that have got into the 1:49 so far on those longer runs. And Marco's lap came on his, I think it was his second lap in the run. And the times started to gradually fade away after that. Marco in the did a similar length run and did a 1:49.996. After that, he was hovering pretty consistently around the mid 1 minute 50s for half a dozen laps, and then dropped into the low 1:51s for the most of the final 5 or 6 laps of his session. So the times fell away after about 10 laps, fell away to be about a second a lap slower than they were at the start of the run, but it's not the huge drop-off that we saw, as I say, at Assen. So 1:49.6 for Muller last time around, but also in the 1:49s, I said there are a few that are looking quick. Wittmann did a 1:49.391. That's the fastest lap of this second part of the session, and it's the fastest anyone's gone so far on a longer run. 1:49.391 then for Marco Wittmann, and also in the 1:49s was Robin Freins on his first proper lap since going back out, 1:49.987. Ultra consistent. You can see Nico Muller going over the start-finish line there, and he's done another 1 minute 49.6. That's 2 on the trot now for him. 1:49.623. De Waal's just crossed the line with a 1:50.4. What Muller has been very good at doing is being quick at the end of the long run. Not necessarily always the quickest at the start of it, but thereabouts, but then finding the time later on. And you've seen it in the races so far this season. He's been able to push a little bit longer than some of the others before he puts in his pit stop. There is he's taught that there could be a couple of different strategies employed at this circuit when we get to the race, and possibly two-stop strategies might be something that some of the teams consider with a fairly early first pit stop. Cost you about 39 seconds to make a pit stop. That's from slowing the car down, coming in, having a stop of around 6 to 7 seconds, and getting back out at the pit lane speed limit as well. Pushing on is Timo Glock, making his way around the last turn. And what's the lap going to be like? Wait for him to come through. Wait for the timing screen to update. 1 minute 50.714. It's okay, but needs to find a bit more time. 1:49.5 for Robin Freins. That was a tenth quicker than Muller on the previous lap. Tyres being readied down at BMW. Wittmann in the 1:49s as well. The Hankook Vintus slick tyres. It's 10 seasons now. It's the 10th season since Hankook have been the official tyre supplier for the DTM, and that's set to continue for another few seasons yet. This very good relationship with the Korean tyre manufacturer. We go back on board then with Timo Glock. So quickest drivers at the moment are Freins and Muller in the mid 1 minute 49s. You've got Marco Wittmann in the high 1 minute 49s, and then most of the rest of the field are in the mid 1 minute 50s. So about a second a lap slower than Muller and Freins at the moment. And includes René Rast, did a 1:50.5 exactly. De Waal did a 1:50.4. Auer did a 1:50.4 on his 26th birthday today. 1:50, mid 150s as well for Hammersberg, Glock, and also for Jamie Green, who's just gone through. Another low 1 minute 50 for Marco Wittmann last time through. On board with Timo Glock then. Climbing the hill down through Ad van Bogen and up towards the chicane. Braking, wrestling the steering wheel, using all the curbs there as well to try and reduce the steering angle into the bumpy final turn at Hyundai Endcurve, and to complete another lap. Over the line will go Timo Glock, and a 1 minute 49.194. Now, interestingly, even though he's on a longer run here, absolute best in the third and final sector of 19.1 seconds. It's a short final sector. It begins just on the entrance and the braking zone to the final chicane. So it just takes in the chicane and the last corner and the run to the checkered flag, or the start-finish line. But even so, pretty impressive end to the lap there for Timo Glock. A good one, 1 minute 49.194. That is now the best lap that we've seen so far today on long run conditions. But Muller is mega consistent. He's done another 149.6. Freins in the 149.6s as well. He did something similar in the free practice session at Assen last weekend. He just clocked in lap after lap after lap, all within a tenth of a second of each other. And that gives the engineers so much more useful data than if you've got an erratic driver. If the driver's doing the same thing lap after lap after lap metronomically, then you can really get a good feel for how the car changes during the course of a run. Riding the curbs there, as I say, through that final chicane to straight line it. Mike Rockenfeller making his way through. And how's Mike getting on? 1 minute 50.5, so he's sort of in that second group at the moment. You got Muller, Freins and Wittmann and Glock, who have all been able to get into the 149s, and the rest of them are pretty evenly matched. And missing the chicane there, just ahead of Timo Glock. And straight lining it just as Robin Freins did this morning was Philipp Eng, I think. Waiting for him to come back in shot. Yes, it was Philipp Eng. Second driver we've seen doing that so far today, but it is a very late braking zone for that corner. Very late on the brakes for turn 1 as well. The last lap for Glock was a 150.071. So not bad, not quite as good as the previous lap though. Also a low 150.035 for René Rast. That's half a second quicker than he has been going in the last 2 or 3 laps. So Rast is able to keep the pace of the tyres strong as well. We ride once more with the onboard camera with Timo Glock, the ex-Grand Prix racer, ex-Formula 1 driver. Controlled aggression through the first sector of the lap. It'd be interesting to note as well, Ferdinand Habsburg was saying when they get down to the hairpin, the Dunlop curve, he reckons there's about 6 different lines on the way into this corner. And he tried them all out, and he reckons some people will be trying different lines when they get to the race as well. On board with René Rast then, 19 times a race winner in the DTM, twice a DTM champion already last year, and of course in 2017 his first season in DTM, but already with a prolific career, predominantly as a Porsche racer in Porsche Super Cup and the Porsche Carrera Cup Deutschland. He's now 5th equal in terms of race wins. Big lock up there for Harrison Newey. René Rast 5th equal with Kurt Thiem on 19 wins. Gets one more, he'll move ahead of Kurt. Bernd Schneider's got the most wins, of course, with 43. Klaus Lutwig, 37. Matthias Ekstrom, another former double champion, 23. And Gary Paffett, 23 as well, another double champion. So potentially be able to catch those and get into the top 3 this year if it's a strong second half of the year for René Rast. Currently lapping in the low 1 minute 50s. Muller and Freins have dropped into that sort of benchmark zone now as well. 1 minute 50.1 for Muller, 1 minute 50.2 for Freins, and Rast lap that he just saw most of, 1 minute 50.5. Tyre change practice then. Timo Glock.
Good pit exit with cold tyres.
Look decent. It's practice for the team.
We will get a slow zone. I will update you on track.
It's also practice for the drivers working the cars on cold tyres when they go back out.
Track is clear.
Slow zone, not because somebody's gone off, but it's just being tested at the end of the session, it's saying, which is about now, only 20 seconds left on the clock. So slow zone 4 just being tested at the end of this session. That was the radio message we were privy to there through Timo Glock's team radio. So Glock going back out, not to set a lap time now, but with new tyres on. As I say, get that pit stop practice, get used to how the car feels on cold tyres for the first half lap or so around the Nürburgring circuit. The flag now falls, but also to get out there for a practice start. So Nico Müller is going to top both of the free practice sessions, sort of. Say equal the time of this man, Marco Wittmann, in the first free practice, but been a pretty perfect day for Nico Müller so far.
And go, go, go.
Look pretty good to me. We don't get privy to the times.
Do a proper formation lap to warm the tires.
Copy.
That looked like a decent practice stop to me.
Track is clear, track is clear.
Maximum of 9 team members can work on the car, but only one wheel gun can be used per side of the vehicle when they get to the pit stops. There's really only 8 of them working on the car. Only 8, it's still quite a lot, but the 9th team member is essentially a tyre catcher to catch any runaway tyres or wheels. Speed limit in the pit lane is standard 50 kilometres per hour. Also have a limit on the number of personnel on pit walls these days, not to do with COVID, just a general rule this, with half a dozen allowed on the pits. There's Lucas Auer, race winner at the Lausitzring, getting BMW's first win of 2020, and his day is now done. After be some fairly muted celebrations of his 26th birthday tonight, because he's got a race weekend ahead. Nice birthday present if he could get a good result tomorrow, though. Not a bad session, though, to get himself into the top 10. Lucas Auer in 7th place. Confirmation of the results then. As expected, quicker times than in free practice 1. Nico Müller at the top, 1 minute 47.543, just 17 thousandths of a second quicker than Robin Freins. René Rast and Loic Duval almost inseparable, 3rd and 4th. So too Marco Wittmann. Those 3 drivers very close in all of them in the 147.8. So 147.9 for Jamie Green in 6th. Lucas Auer also in the 147.9s in 7th. Mike Rockenfeller in 8th place, also with a 147.9. And then Ferdinand Habsburg 9th, 148.079. Timo Glock 10th, 148.162 seconds. Sheldon van der Linde again in 11th place, like he was this morning. Philip Eng 12th, Jonathan Aberdeen 13th, Fabio Scherer 14th, Robert Kubica 15th, and Harrison Newey in 16th place as we continue to watch the practice starts. So lots of useful data gathered here. They did have
4, 3, 2, 1, go, 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 stop, 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 good.
So, go, 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 stop, stop, stop. There's Jamie Green being guided into the grid hatchings as they practice that procedure as well. Each race engineer, each driver on the pit wall to guide them through, because they're very limited view from within the cockpits of the nose of the car in terms of lining those cars up. And if they're slightly over the lines, they can face penalties, even if they don't necessarily jump the start. But if they're out of position on the grid, they can be in big trouble. Jamie Green being guided in by Eric Baumgartner, his race engineer. Marco Wittmann about to get his practice start underway. Bit of wheel spin. Pretty aggressive off the line there for Marco. He's had a good day today here on this first day of action at the Nürburgring. And René Rast hasn't had a bad day either, but I think he will feel he's just trailing his 2 key rivals a little bit going into tomorrow, with Müller and Freins having the edge over him. Certainly on single lap pace, although in fairness to René, he didn't really get the chance to have that run this morning. Here's Assen race winner Sheldon van der Linde. His best lap time in that session was a 1 minute 48.2. So he's about 7/10 away from the top 2, but he's only about half a second away from the group of cars just after that. The rest of the top 10 really are all pretty evenly matched. But a bit of time to find on single lap pace, but Sheldon looked pretty decent on the long runs, particularly in that first free practice session. Philip Eng gets his BMW off the line now. The Austrian will be keen to get his season really up and running today. And this is the view on board Nico Müller as he generates a bit of heat into the Hankook tyres.
So it's 3, 2, 1, stop. Perfect. ALS on.
All right, now you get to see what the start is like from the championship leaders' perspective. Lights out, off straight away. Incredible reaction time from these drivers. And you've got to get it just right. Enough gas to get you off the line without wheel spinning, but not to bog down as well. Loic Duval 4th place in the championship, 4th place in free practice 2. One of the last cars to get underway, and the Frenchman now fires the Team Phoenix Audi off the line as
10,
Robin Freins
9,
comes
8,
into position.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Perfect. Green flag out now. Good luck.
Good luck. Doesn't need it yet. He needs it tomorrow, but I've got the sentiment. That's a great camera angle. That really does give you a sense of speed. And although the driver's obviously slightly higher up than that, it gives you a sense of how low they are and what a different view of the corners they get. There's a bump on the way into turn 1 that they hit on the way through the braking zone there. And they go onto the attack. Super slow-mos then of our top 3 from the session, and they're the top 3 in the championship in the same order. René Rast in 3rd place, 1 minute 47.805 seconds. Robin Freins, 0.3 quicker, 1 minute 47.560. And not much at all between him and the driver that ends the 2nd free practice session of the day as the fastest man out there. It's Nico Müller, of course, 1 minute 47.543 seconds. As he now digs deep to try and fend off the attack that seems to be coming from Robin Freins at the top of the championship table. Out for a race win this weekend is the points leader Nico Müller. Let's see if he can do it tomorrow. First up, though, they'll have qualifying. That's coming up tomorrow morning at 10:35. Thanks very much for joining us for the free practice sessions today. From me, Chris Hartley, and the team, thanks for watching.